Dawn, the 25th of May, 1720. You are standing on the quay of the Vieux Port of Marseille. The air smells of tar, salt fish, orange peel, and soap. The soap is yellow. It is cut into blocks the size of bricks. The soap is famous across the Mediterranean. Behind you, the city climbs 3 hills. Red tiles. Church towers. The long rectangle of the port cuts into the limestone like a blade. Along the quays, there are perhaps 200 masts. The city is rich. The city is one of the largest in France. The city holds a royal monopoly on all trade with the Levant. Every port from Istanbul to Alexandria. The silk in your wife's dress, the coffee in your morning cup, the cotton of the sheet you slept on last night. All of it came through this port first. Half a mile out on the water, there is an island called Pomègue. Between Pomègues and the shore, a ship is anchored. Her name is the Grand Saint-Antoine. She has been at sea for 10 months. By tomorrow, her cargo will start coming ashore. Inside 30 days, people will be dying in the alleys behind the port. Inside 4 months, half of this city will be dead. This is the last great plague of Western Europe. It arrives because of a fair in July. Look at the city. Marseille, 1720, is a free port. The king has exempted it from most customs duties since 1669. It has a royal monopoly on Levantine trade. 80 to 90,000 people live inside its walls. It is one of the 4 or 5 largest cities in France. Walk along the Vieux Port, past the soap works, past the coffee warehouses. Coffee is still new here, and still a luxury. Past the bales of Turkish cotton on the quay. Past the rope makers. Now turn west. Pass through the city gate. Walk for 15 minutes along the shore. You are at the Lazare d'Aronc. It is a walled compound. Long warehouses, dormitories, a chapel, guards at the gates. This is the best quarantine station in Europe. Every ship coming from the Levant must anchor first at Pomègue. The captain must present his patente de santé, a bill of health stamped at every port he passed through. If the bill is clean, his ship waits 18 days. If the bill is suspect, 40. If it is foul, the ship is held, the cargo unpacked bale by bale, aired in the sun under the eyes of the guards, sometimes burned. 40 days. In Italian, 40 giorni. This is where the word quarantine comes from. The system is run by the Bureau de la Santé, a board of city magistrates. The chief magistrate this year is the Premier Échevin, first alderman of Marseille. His name is Jean-Baptiste Estelle. He is also a merchant. He also has business interests in Levantine trade. Remember his name. Back to Pomègue, back to the ship. The Grand Saint-Antoine is a merchantman. Her captain is a man named Jean-Baptiste Chateau. He is experienced. He has run the Levant route before. 10 months ago, he sailed from Sidon, on the coast of what is today Lebanon. Then Tripoli. Then Cyprus. Then Livorno in Tuscany. Now, home. At some point during the voyage, men began to die aboard his ship. Not many, perhaps 8. The ship's surgeon is among them. At Livorno, the Tuscan authorities hold him in quarantine. They examine the ship. They give him a document suggesting the deaths were caused by bad food. He sails for Marseille carrying that document. He drops anchor at Pomègues on the morning of the 25th of May. The Bureau de la Santé comes aboard. The Bureau sees the document. The Bureau also has a calendar on the wall of its office in the city. On that calendar, circled, is a date. July 22nd, 1720. That is the day the Beaucaire Fair opens. If you have never heard of Beaucaire, few people have now. In 1720, it is one of the largest trade fairs in Europe. For 2 weeks every July, a small town on the Rhône fills with merchants from Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, and the Atlantic seaboard. A cargo of Levantine silk delivered in time for Beaucaire will sell for a fortune. A cargo delivered after Beaucaire is worth half. The Grand Saint-Antoine is carrying silk for Beaucaire. First Alderman Estelle owns part of that silk. Now, watch what happens next. The cargo begins to move ashore earlier than a full quarantine would allow. Porters carry the bales. Porters have families. From this point, there are 2 clocks running. One is in the warehouses of the Lazaret and in the alleys behind the port. Every bale of silk unpacked, every coil of rope handled, every porter walking home at the end of his shift, every one of those is the clock of the disease. The other clock is the calendar on the bureau's wall. Every day that passes brings the Beaucaire fair closer. It is late May. The ship is in port. It is early June. Porters are handling cargo. Some of the silk is being loaded onto river barges bound up the Rhône. Nothing unusual. It is the 20th of June. In a small house on the Rue Belle Table, a woman dies. Her body is strange. High fever. Dark swellings the size of an egg at the groin and the neck. Black patches under the skin. The physicians are called. They argue about what to write in the parish register. They write, fièvre maligne, malignant fever. They do not write peste. Days pass. More people die on the Rue Belle Table. More on the Rue Jean Galland. A porter who worked the Grand Saint-Antoine's bales. His wife. His neighbor. Fièvre maligne, the physicians write. Fièvre maligne. Fièvre maligne. It is the 9th of July, first alderman. Estelle is still writing letters to the intendant in Aix. The situation, he writes, is contained. It is the 22nd of July. The Beaucaire fair opens 100 kilometers up the Rhône. Some of the silk from the Grand Saint-Antoine is on its tables. On the same day, in Marseille, the Bureau de la Santé orders the first houses in the affected streets to be walled shut from the outside, with the sick inside. It is 31st July. The physicians of Marseille are assembled by the city government. They sign a formal declaration. The disease in the city is pest. The clock of the bales and the clock of the fair have closed into one. The first week of August, 100 dead a day. Second week of August, 500 a day. End of August, 1,000 a day. Maybe more. The records keep slipping because the people who keep records are dying too. Watch the city now. You are standing above the Vieux-Port, on a rise, on a hill called La Tourette. Below you is the old hospital. Next to it, the church of Saint-Laurent. On a normal morning, you would see the priests and the nursing nuns and the orderlies. There are no priests. There are no nuns. There are no orderlies. Along the wall of the church, the dead are stacked. Not laid out, not wrapped, stacked. They are stacked because the men whose job was to carry them down to the cemetery are either dead themselves or gone. Families on the upper floors of the narrow houses can no longer carry their dead down the stairs, so they push them out of the windows. On some streets, the dead have piled so high that the living cannot reach the doors of their own houses. In August, on the Mediterranean coast, the heat stays in the stone until after midnight. A painter named Michel Serres lives through this summer. Later, he will paint the scene at La Tourette. Twice. You can count the bodies in his paintings. You can see the living standing at a careful distance from them, holding cloth to their faces. You can see the arms. You can see the turned away faces. Up in the narrow upper alleys of the Panier district, a servant goes to check on an elderly silk merchant. She opens the door. She comes back out. She does not speak. She sits on the step. Multiply her by 3,000. This is Marseille in August 1720. Everyone in the city has a theory about what is causing this. It is the summer heat. It is the bad water. It is a punishment. It is the marshes outside the walls. It is the Jews. It is never the Jews. There are almost none in Marseille in 1720, but someone says it. It is the Turks. It is the Levant. It is bad air. Almost no one is looking at the silk. The bales that came off the Grand Saint-Antoine in late May were packed in Sidon and Tripoli. They were packed in Levantine warehouses. Those warehouses have rats. The rats have fleas. The fleas carry Yersinia pestis. The fleas do not need the rats to reach Marseille. The fleas can live in the folds of coarse cotton. They can live in the space between layers of raw silk. They can survive in a bale at sea for weeks. A porter breaks the rope of a bale on the Quai du Port. He does not see the fleas. He carries the bale to the warehouse. He goes home in the evening to the Rue Belle Table. 3 weeks later, his wife is dead. This is not a curse. This is a cargo. By mid-September, the cemeteries are full. The city tries mass graves in vacant lots. The mass graves fill. The city tries the old quarry pits outside the walls. The quarry pits fill. There is no one left who will touch the dead. On the 16th of September, the city takes a decision that would, in any other year, be unthinkable. They turn to the arsenal. The arsenal of Marseille holds the king's galleys. The galleys are crewed by forçats, convicts, sentenced to years at the oar. The city makes them an offer. Clear the dead from La Tourette. If you survive, your sentence is cut. Roughly 150 men come up from the galleys in chains. They are put under the command of a man named Chevalier Nicolas Rose. Rose is a former merchant. He has been appointed the city's commissioner for the quarter of La Tourette. He is 55 years old. He does not have to take this job. He takes it anyway. For several days, Rose and his galley men clear La Tourette. They use long hooks. They dig trenches in the old ditches of the ramparts. Where they cannot dig fast enough, they burn. Most of the galley men die. Rose lives. At the same time, in the southern quarters of the city, another man is walking. His name is Henri-François Xavier de Belsunce de Castelmoron. He is the Bishop of Marseille. He is about 50. When the plague comes, the rich leave. The magistrates, many of them, leave. The intendant of Provence sends his family out of Aix. Belsunce stays. He walks through the worst streets of Marseille. He carries the sacrament to the dying. He performs last rites at doorways. In November, at the height of the epidemic, he leads a procession barefoot through the city, carrying the image of the Sacred Heart. The procession does not end the plague. The plague ends when it runs out of people to kill in that particular way. But watch what the procession does in the city. There is someone in the streets. There is someone who did not leave. For a city that has forgotten what a living public authority looks like, that is not nothing. By the spring of 1721, the plague has escaped Marseille. It is in Aix, it is in Arles, it is in Toulon, it is moving north along the Rhône, toward the papal territories of Avignon and the Comtat Venaissin. The Parlement of Aix meets. It issues a decree. Anyone who crosses into or out of Marseille without authorization is to be hanged. Sanitary cordons are drawn along the roads. Villages burn the bridges to their own neighbours. Letters coming out of Marseille are dipped in vinegar, fumigated over juniper smoke, and handled with tongs. That is the legal face of the response. The physical face of the response runs for 27 kilometers across the limestone plateau of the Vaucluse, between the villages of Monnieu and Cabrières d'Avignon. It is a wall, dry stone, 2 meters high, 70 centimeters thick, small guardhouses at intervals, soldiers, pistols, bayonets. It is built in the summer of 1721. They call it the Mur de la Peste. the Plague Wall. Parts of it are still standing today. You can walk it. The garrig grows around it. The guard houses are half collapsed. The stones are the same stones that men laid in panic 300 years ago, because the one intervention they understood was distance. And in the Bay of Jar, off the coast of Marseille, on the 25th of September 1720, the Grand Saint-Antoine has been towed out, scuttled, and set on fire. She burns for days. Divers will find her wreck in the 20th century. Do the arithmetic. Roughly 40 to 50,000 people die inside Marseille itself, out of perhaps 90,000. Roughly 90 to 120,000 die across Provence. These are reconstructions. Exact counts were never kept because the keepers of counts were dying. But the number that matters is this one, about half of the city. Inside 2 years, Captain Chateau is arrested. He is held in the Château d'If, the island fortress off the coast that a novelist named Alexandre Dumas will later make famous in another story about another unjustly held prisoner. Chateau is eventually released. He dies a minor figure. First Alderman Estelle never faces the public trial that many of his surviving fellow citizens expect. He dies in 1723. The Grand Saint-Antoine is at the bottom of the bay. Marseille rebuilds. The population recovers inside a generation. The soap still ships. The coffee still comes. But the trade advantage is gone. Other ports, Toulon, Sète, Genoa, Livorno, take up the Levantine routes that Marseille can no longer guarantee. Marseille stays important. It never again becomes unchallenged. And across the Mediterranean, and then across Atlantic Europe, the quarantine laws are rewritten in the decade after 1720. 40 days becomes 40 days, in fact. The Lazaret d'Aronc is expanded. Bills of health become longer, stamped more places, checked by more men. The modern public health state, the idea that a government has both the right and the duty to stop people and ships and cargo at a line on a map, takes its largest single step forward in European history here. You are on the Plateau de Vaucluse. It is a clear morning. Thyme and rosemary in the air, the sun on limestone. You put your hand on the wall. The men who placed these stones did not know about Yersinia pestis. They did not know about the flea. They did not know that a bale of silk in a warm hold for 10 months is a better vector than a rat. They knew only that somewhere south of them, in Marseille, their neighbors had been dying in numbers that could not be buried, and that the one thing that seemed to slow it was distance. So they built distance, out of stone, across a plateau by hand, in one summer. And in the bay below the city, a ship was burning, a ship that had done exactly what a ship was built to do: sail, trade, come home. Because the system that was supposed to stop her had, for one fair in July, blinked.